See, go to experts and ask them. And so I asked all these people one after the other, and none of them had it. None of them. And I was getting really freaked about that. That's when I first started saying, they don't know. Nobody really knows. This whole thing is a big sham.
This whole thing is a big sham.
That's Kary Mullis, the inventor of the hyper-popular RT-PCR test that Big Pharma and the biotechs are capitalizing on. Guess what he's saying is a big sham. You need to stay tuned because everybody needs to see this.
We've been talking a lot about Kary Mullis. Kary Mullis is the inventor of the RT-PCR test. That's reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction test. And the PCR test is being used all the time, 500,000 times a day, according to the Trump administration. And I've seen as high as $750,000 times a day just in the United States. Just in the United States, guys. I did a little math. 500,000 tests a day just in the U.S. times a minimum of $43 per test for reimbursement under the CARES Act through Medicare is $21.5 million every single day. That's just for the RT-PCR test in the United States. They want to ramp that up. They want to make it so that every time you go to work, you have to be tested. You don't get to work that day unless you test negative according to the RT-PCR test. So I thought it would be a good idea if we listen with our own ears from the mouth of the creator of the RT-PCR test. And I've only watched like the first minute and a half, but I thought what he was saying was pretty interesting about AIDS. This is called Why I Began Questioning HIV. And I'm going to leave the link in the chat room before we start this, so you can have this for your coronavirus file, because I got a big coronavirus file and it's growing. This is Kary Mullis, the creator of the RT-PCR test, for which he received a Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. Check this out. No, Brian, not the truth.
The first time I really questioned it, I was working on a project where we were measuring HIV in people's blood at this place called Specialty Laboratories in Santa Monica. I was just a consultant there. And I came in about 3 days a month, and we were working on that. And at some point, we needed to re-up our grant from the NIH to work on that, and I had to write it. And so the first line of that was, HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. And I wrote that, and then I said, well, I need a paper, some kind of scientific paper, to reference that statement, because when you make a statement like that, that's like a fact. You need to say, here's how come I know that, right? You put a little 1 if it's the first statement you've made, and then you put down at the bottom of the paper you have a 1, and you say, here's a paper by somebody that describes why that statement is true, right? And so I said, well, what's that? Let me think about, what is that paper? Who do I go to for that? And I looked around, I asked a couple of virologists at that company, and they said, no, you don't have to reference. I said, I have to reference that because I don't know where that came from. How do I know that? And it turned out that nobody.
Looks like he felt like he had to reference it because he has something called a conscience. He has character, and he's not an order follower. If he's going to make a statement like that, HIV is the probable cause of AIDS, this guy wants some facts. He wants some evidence. That's what scientists do, right?
He knew it. There wasn't a scientific reference, like a paper that somebody had submitted with like experimental data in it and like logical discussion and said, here's how come we know that HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. There was nothing out there like that. Nothing.
So it sounds to me like in order for them to get the NIH grant, they were just going to say whatever it took to get that grant. To hell with the facts. Just put down that HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. Don't question it. Don't try to look for research. Don't try to footnote it. Just put it down there and they're going to give us the grant. Just shut up, Kary. Amazing, man. Amazing. You know what the sad part about this is? This man is no longer with us. He's dead. And it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder if he was killed so that they could co-opt his RT-PCR test and have it mass produced so whoever's producing it can make a grip of money every single day. Right here, the interviewer asks, can you tell me about your experience when you met Luc Montagnier for the first time? Now, it's important to note that Luc Montagnier is the French virologist and joint recipient of the 2008 Nobel Peace Prize in Physiology or Medicine for his discovery of the HIV retrovirus.
By the time I met Luc Montagnier, I had met a lot of AIDS researchers at meetings, and I had always gone up to them. If they talked like they knew about HIV and AIDS, I always went up to them afterwards and I said, where can I find a scientific reference that I can use for my, remember I said I had a sentence there, it said HIV is the probable cause of AIDS, and I needed to have that backed up by something before I could write it and submit it. And I went around, I asked a whole lot of people. I said, well, I can't find it. At first I looked for it, just in like computer searching kind of stuff like that. But then I said, there's got to be somebody that knows this. So you go to experts and ask them. And so I asked all these people one after the other, and none of them had it. None of them. And I was getting really freaked about that. That's when I first started saying, they don't know. Nobody really knows. This whole thing is a big sham. It's ridiculous.
Holy crap, maybe this is why this guy is dead.
Ridiculous. But then finally Montagnier came to there was a special little seminar down in San Diego where an old friend of Robert Gallo's, Flossie Wong-Stahl, was opening up the Department of AIDS Research down at San Diego. They had lots of money involved, federal money, and they had Montagnier come there and give a talk. And after that, they had a little wine and cheese thing, and I went over to Montagnier afterwards, and I said, Dr. Montagnier, I can't find a reference, I can't find a reference to go with the statement HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. I'm sure you can help me. And he knew that he probably should be able to help me. And he said, well, why don't you quote this new work, and by new he meant like something that came out this year, right? This new work about a virus that can kill monkeys. Or I think it was not monkeys, it was like something related to monkeys, some kind of a little ape. And I had read that and I said it was like supposedly going to be a model system for studying AIDS, that somebody had figured out some kind of retrovirus that passing it back and forth between various mammals, they could finally put it into chimpanzees and kill them. And it killed them in about a week, and it didn't kill them there was nothing like AIDS there. It doesn't kill you in a week. It was just totally ridiculous. None of the symptoms were the same. And I said, well, I read that.
Let me show you something. There's an information shelf. They call it an information shelf underneath this video that's been provided to us by YouTube. And look what it says here. AIDS, by name of acquired immune deficiency syndrome, transmissible disease of the immune system caused by the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. So basically they're saying AIDS is caused by HIV. And Kary Mullis, is the creator of the RT-PCR test, is saying that for him to say HIV is the probable cause of AIDS, he had a big problem with that because he couldn't find any documentation. He couldn't find it in any of the medical white papers. He couldn't substantiate that with evidence. He had a problem saying HIV is the probable cause of AIDS, but the Encyclopedia Britannica and Alphabet Inc., which controls Google, which controls YouTube, says AIDS is caused by HIV. Is caused, not is the probable cause. So a true scientist had a problem saying HIV is the probable cause of AIDS, but Google has no problem saying, no, AIDS is the cause is caused by HIV. Amazing, man. So there's the difference between somebody who's got character, somebody who's got a conscience, and somebody who cares about truth, and a top shelf authoritative source like Google, YouTube, Encyclopedia Britannica, Wikipedia, saying definitively, yes, AIDS is caused by HIV. Amazing.
That paper, and I didn't see any connection between that and AIDS, and I don't think that would be I wouldn't want to use that as a reference. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but I know he walked away. Oh, No, before he told me about that paper, he said, why don't you use the NIH, like the CDC report? And I said, well, I looked at that, and that was not a scientific paper. And then he said, what about this other thing, this like paper that had just come out about a month before, and a lot of fanfare associated with that paper, but it was total crap. It was like, yeah, if you get $2 million, you can figure out how to kill a primate with a retrovirus. So what? Doesn't have anything to do with AIDS. It didn't look like AIDS. It didn't smell like AIDS. It wasn't AIDS. It was just like, got a retrovirus that can kill a chimpanzee. So what? So I didn't get any more out of him. He walked away after that. And the people, like, they were thinking he should come up with a better answer than that. But he couldn't, and he just turned around and walked away. I really thought he'd have an answer. I really did. I mean, that was my last, I was right at the edge of my faith in the system, but I thought Montagnier will know why he thinks HIV causes it, and he'll tell me. He'll say, because of this study, you know, but he didn't have that.
Think about the gravity of this. Luc Montagnier, the guy who discovered the HIV retrovirus, could not provide any evidence that satisfied Kary Mullis's simple question of where is the proof that HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. But the fact checkers at Google are somehow able to boldly assert that AIDS is absolutely caused by HIV. Just let that sink in.
But I thought Montagnier will know why he thinks HIV causes it, and he'll tell me. He'll say, because of this study, you know, but he didn't have that.
So Kary Mullis goes to the top in that specific field of HIV being the probable cause of AIDS, and he couldn't get the answer at the top because they didn't have the answer. And the reason they don't have the answer is because they're incentivized not to get the answer. It's all a shell game. This is a medical dog and pony show.
None of those guys have that, and that's why they're so weird. You know, that's why they don't want dissent. They don't want people like me walking up and asking them those kind of questions, and they're willing to like go to great lengths to prevent that. They're out on a limb. I wouldn't want to be there with them.
Again, because he has character. He doesn't want to go out on a limb. If he doesn't have evidence, he's not going to write it. He's not going to be dishonest. But so many people are out there on the take. That's why the two investigative probes you should have in any criminal investigation, one is a directive and one is the question. The directive is follow the money. The question is who benefits. And when you find out, when you follow the money trail and you find out who benefits, you're going to find a whole lot of criminal activity because those people are going to do a lot of things to make that money, up to and including some extremely gross and immoral things.